Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Newsviews. I'm Judy Sue. Friday was the deadline for applicants interested in being Chicago's next police superintendent. The person hired will lead a department that has to rebuild the public trust. It took a big hit after the release of the Laquan McDonald shooting video. There is also the continued gun violence in the city and, of course, a federal investigation of the department. So what happens next in the process to select a new top cop? Joining me now to answer those questions and more is Lightfoot, president of the Chicago Police Board. Good morning, and thank you for joining us.
My pleasure to be here.
Let's begin with what happens now, what happens next. The application process was over on Friday. Can you tell us how many people applied, how many people within the department from outside the state?
Well, we have a substantial number of people who have applied. I'm very encouraged by the size of the applicant pool. I would say that a significant number of people from outside of the city of Chicago, meaning no prior connection to Chicago, have applied, which I think really speaks well to the importance of this job. In terms of next steps, the board has started its process. We have the applications. Each of us are reading literally every page. We're going to be meeting as a group shortly here to really kind of go through, talk about the applicants, and then make decisions on the number of people that we're going to bring in for interviews.
Many experts who study law enforcement policies have said that this has got to be the toughest police chief job in the country right now. Local leaders are calling Chicago a city in crisis. Community leaders are describing the streets as a war zone. Do you agree with those assessments?
I think that that's overstated, to be sure. I mean, clearly there are neighborhoods in our city where crime is raging, where there's high incidence of poverty, and those neighborhoods are definitely in distress. There's no question about it. But unfortunately, I think no offense intended, but particularly the national media has made it seem as if in every neighborhood all across the city, hundreds of thousands of people are marching in protest. You know that the reality is somewhat different. But it is very clear that the trust between the community and the police, and particularly communities of color, has been broken, and we have to do everything possible to try to restore that trust. Now, the root causes of that go back decades. The root causes of that go back and beyond the mere relationship between the police and the community, but the police clearly have a big role to play, and we need to make sure that those voices are heard and that positive steps are being taken to heal that rift.
And speaking of those voices, the police board held a public meeting on Tuesday.
We did.
To hear from the public on this selection process. You were there, you heard a lot of frustration and anger. I'm going to quote two speakers from the meeting. One of them said, "The board has been handpicked and hand-appointed by the mayor, so where is our faith in this board?" Another speaker got up and said, "We might as well not have any black people on that board. What have you done?" How do you respond to that?
Well, there's always going to be people who criticize. There's always going to be people who challenge the status quo, challenge the establishment. Frankly, we're seeing that played out on a number of different fronts, not the least of which is in the presidential campaign that's raging now. We are in a time where citizens have lost faith in institutions of government really all across the country, and it's no different here than it is anyplace else. But what you also didn't hear on Tuesday night is a number of people who came up to members of the board, pulled us aside, and said, "Thank you. Thank you for coming. Thank you for listening. Thank you for explaining the process. And thank you for giving us an opportunity to be here and to have our voices heard." So for every voice that's loud and boisterous and complaining and threatening and arguing for resignations, there's many people that stand more quietly but just as passionately, who understand that it's important for the relationship between the police and the community to be healed.
And there were many residents who said clearly that they would like to be part of the vetting process. They want to be a part of this discussion before the finalists are chosen. Will that happen? Can that happen?
It's happening now. That's why we were there on Tuesday night.
But they want to see who are the candidates, and they want to be a part of the questioning.
Well,
with
we're going to take this step by step. This is an employment process. This is not a political campaign. We have to be respectful of people's privacy. We have to be respectful of their rights to be able to apply. And frankly, we don't want to throw this open to a plebiscite and scare off people of goodwill who might be very, very well qualified to do the job. think of yourself, if you're applying for a job, do you want your current employer to know, by the way, I might be thinking of making some kind of change. I might think that there's an opportunity out there that's better for me than what my present circumstance is. If we threw all of that out to the public, we would have no people that would apply. So we've got to do the process the right way. I absolutely understand that the community wants to have involvement. That's exactly why we were out there on Tuesday night. That's exactly why we're going to be, again, soliciting in a more formal way public comment and questions next Thursday.
Okay, we're going to take a quick break right here. More with Lori Lightfoot to Newsviews. My guest this morning is Lori Lightfoot, the president of the Chicago Police Board. Again, welcome back. And Lori, when you took this job, actually, literally just a few months ago, you knew you were getting into the political hot seat. And you said at that time, actually, it's really important for the public to understand what the role of the police board is. So I'm going to quote the mayor here when he was introducing you and in the nomination. Mayor Rahm Emanuel said, the police board is a unique and important body that provides residents with a voice in the police disciplinary process, ensuring that it is not only fair and transparent, but also that it works for the people. In light of that mission statement, do you think the board has been and is currently now following that mission statement?
Oh, absolutely. In a number of different ways. First of all, we are residents of Chicago. We live in the neighborhoods. We care deeply about this city. One of the many ways in which we believe that we fulfill that mission is through our monthly meetings. At those meetings, any action that we take against a police officer and the charges that have been brought in front of us, we cast our votes in the public forum. So people have an opportunity to see in a real way what we're doing. That provides a measure of accountability for us, and it makes us responsive to the public. And of course, the public portions of our meeting are an essential way in which we fulfill our mandate. Every month, we are there. People come to us on a range of different issues, whether it's a case that's pending before the police board or not, whether it's something about a hot spot on a corner. We are there and we listen and we take action based upon the voices that we hear from the public every month.
But if that's the case, how do we get to this point with the recent release of the video and the distrust in the community?
Well, the police board has a very specific role. Our jurisdiction is invoked when formal charges are filed by the superintendent against an officer recommending either a lengthy term of suspension or termination. So we have a role to play, but we're not the overlord over everything that pertains to policing. However, I think that the important mission that we're on right now, which is selecting the police superintendent, is one of the most important, frankly, public policy decisions that this city is going to face, I think, for the foreseeable future.
You are also on the new task force formed by the mayor on police accountability. A former federal prosecutor told me that when you look into Chicago Police Department and the accountability department, it's sort of like, he described it like a spider web. It just kind of keeps going. And that to get to the bottom line, it would take a year, maybe more. The mayor didn't give you that much time. How would you get to the bottom of it? How would you make recommendations for change?
Well, first of all, the people that are sitting on the task force are folks that I think have a lot of experience in policing, a lot of experience in law enforcement. So we're going to be able to get to that bottom line, I think, a lot quicker than somebody who's starting anew that doesn't have that kind of experience and history. I also think that what our goal is, and which is absolutely achievable in the time period that we've been allotted, is to create a blueprint. We're going to have very candid and fulsome findings about what's happening, whether or not there need to be specific changes in policies and practices, procedure, and then we're going to make very concrete recommendations for the path forward.
I do want to ask you about the recent cases of police-involved shooting. Another video was just released on Thursday. Can you talk about the policy when it comes to the use of deadly force? A lot of people are asking, why not use tasers first?
Well, I think fundamentally we have to go back to what is the training of those officers? What information are they getting when those calls are dispatched? Are the right people showing up? Where are the supervisors? Because the supervisors play a very important role in de-escalating a situation. We have a lot of questions, obviously, about what's happened over the course of the last 2 months with the videos that have been disclosed. One of the very issues that we're going to be taking on as a task force is coming up with a common sense policy on the release release of videotape evidence in connection with police-involved shootings. But fundamentally, we have to ask tough, hard questions about training, about supervision, and about accountability, and that's exactly what we're doing.
And finally, before we go, the finalists will be presented to the mayor when?
Our hope is that we're going to have the finalists selected and identified by the end of February.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us today.
It's our pleasure.
Lori Lightfoot, president of the Chicago Police Board. That does it for Newsviews this morning. I hope you enjoy the rest of your weekend. Now let's go back to the news desk.